The streets of Paris were beautiful, their cobblestones bathed in the soft, golden glow of the streetlights. The air was crisp, carrying the distant hum of the city, the murmur of voices in nearby cafes, the occasional laughter echoing from lovers strolling by. Amara, a young photographer, found herself lost in these streets, unsure if it was intentional. She was supposed to meet friends, but something about Paris made her want to wander alone, capturing its essence through her lens. As she lifted her camera to snap a shot of the Eiffel Tower, she bumped into someone, almost dropping her camera. "Sorry," she exclaimed, looking up to see a pair of dark eyes staring back. The man before her, Luc, though she didn't know it yet, smiled, his gaze lingering just a second too long. "No harm done," he said with a rich, accented voice that sent shivers down her spine. "You seem lost." Amara smiled, feeling a sudden flutter in her chest. There was something about the way he stood there, the air between them thick with an unspoken connection. She couldn't explain it, but felt drawn to him, like Paris itself had conspired to bring them together. "I was just wandering," she replied softly. "But I think I might have wandered a little too far." "Lucky me, then," Luc said, his smile widening, revealing a charming dimple. "Let me show you a side of Paris only Parisians know." Amara's heart skipped a beat. Before she could think twice, she nodded. "Lead the way." Luc led her down narrow streets and winding alleys, past ancient buildings covered in ivy and brightly lit windows. The night felt intimate, as if the city had dimmed its lights just for them. Finally, they arrived at the Seine, where the moonlight shimmered on the water's surface, casting a soft, silver glow. "This," Luc said, gesturing to the river, "is where I come when I need to think. The city feels different here, quieter, more intimate." Amara's breath caught as she looked out over the water. There was something undeniably magical about Paris at night, especially with Luc beside her. She felt his presence, his warmth, his arm brushing hers as they walked side by side. The touch was brief but sent a thrill through her. "So, why were you wandering alone?" Luc asked, his voice low, his eyes searching hers. Amara hesitated, caught off guard by the vulnerability in his question. "I've always been a little restless," she admitted. "I came here to find something, but I'm not sure what it is yet." Luc smiled knowingly. "Maybe you've already found it." His words hung in the air, filled with meaning. Amara's heart raced as she felt his gaze, the world around them fading. Slowly, Luc reached out, his fingers brushing hers in a tentative, delicate touch. The simple gesture sent a shiver down her spine, drawing her closer to him. They stood like that, their fingers barely touching, the city around them silent save for the soft lapping of the river. The intimacy of the moment was undeniable. Amara's breath hitched as Luc's hand lingered, his thumb tracing the inside of her palm in slow, deliberate circles. There was something electrifying in the softness of his touch, the way his fingers played with hers. She felt her pulse quicken, the space between them shrinking with each passing second. "Do you feel that?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. Luc stepped closer, his body brushing hers. "Every bit of it." His other hand found its way to her cheek, his fingers grazing her skin as he cupped her face gently. Amara's eyes fluttered shut at the sensation, her heart pounding in her chest. Slowly, as if testing the waters, Luc leaned in, his breath warm against her lips. Their noses touched first, the closeness between them palpable, the anticipation building like a wave about to crash. When their lips finally met, it was soft at first, a tentative exploration, as though neither wanted to break the spell. But the kiss deepened quickly, urgency taking over. Amara's hands found his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart beneath her fingertips. Luc's arms wrapped around her waist, pulling her closer, until there was no space left between them. His lips moved with hers in perfect sync, their kiss growing more passionate with each second. Amara lost herself in him, in the feel of his lips, the taste of his kiss, the way his hands roamed over her back, his fingers tracing the curve of her spine. She wanted more, needed more, and it seemed Luc did too. He kissed her harder, his hands sliding lower, gripping her waist with a possessiveness that made her head spin. They were lost in the moment, in each other, the world around them fading into nothingness. They eventually pulled apart, their breaths coming in short gasps, their foreheads pressed together. Luc's eyes were dark with desire as he gazed at her, his hands still holding her close. "Maybe Paris isn't the only thing that's magical tonight," he murmured, his voice husky. Amara smiled, her heart still racing. "Maybe not." Luc didn't say anything more. He didn't need to. The way he looked at her, the intensity in his gaze, said it all. And in that moment, Amara knew this night was far from over. Luc led her to a small, hidden cafe nestled in the corner of a quiet street. The sign read Café de Minuit, and it seemed to glow softly under the flickering lamplight. Inside, the warmth wrapped around them like a blanket. The smell of fresh pastries and strong coffee filled the air, the quiet murmur of conversation adding to the intimate atmosphere. They found a table by the window, the faint sound of jazz music playing in the background. Luc ordered in fluent French, his voice low and melodic. Soon, they were sharing a bottle of wine, the tension between them growing with each passing moment. Amara could feel her heart pounding in her chest as Luc leaned closer, his hand brushing hers under the table. This time, his touch lingered. His fingers slowly intertwined with hers, his thumb tracing soft circles over her knuckles. The air between them was thick with anticipation. Luc's eyes locked on hers, his gaze dark and intense. Amara's pulse quickened as he leaned in, his lips just inches from hers. "I feel like I've known you forever," Amara whispered. Luc smiled, his eyes flickering with something deeper. "Maybe we have." He reached out then, his fingers gently tucking a strand of her hair behind her ear, the intimacy of the gesture sending a surge of heat through her. Amara closed her eyes, savoring the feel of his touch, the closeness of him. When she opened them again, Luc was closer than before, his breath warm against her skin. The cafe, the wine, the music, all of it seemed to disappear. There was only Luc, and the way he made her feel. Slowly, deliberately, Luc leaned in and kissed her again. This time, the kiss was deeper, more passionate, their lips moving in perfect harmony. His hand slid to the back of her neck, pulling her closer, and Amara melted into him, her fingers tangling in his hair as they kissed. After leaving the cafe, Luc led her to a quiet street near Montmartre, where he unlocked a hidden door and beckoned her inside. They climbed a narrow staircase until they reached the top, emerging onto a secluded rooftop that offered a breathtaking view of Paris. The Eiffel Tower glowed in the distance, the streets below alive with flickering lights. The cool night air brushed against their skin, but neither of them felt the chill. "I come here when I need to remind myself that life is more than what we see," Luc said softly. "Paris is beautiful, but up here, it feels endless." Amara turned to him, her heart full. "Thank you for sharing it with me." Luc smiled, his gaze shifting to her. "I'd share anything with you." The words hung between them, filled with promise. Slowly, Luc pulled her closer, his arms wrapping around her waist as he kissed her again, this time with more urgency, more need. Amara melted into him, her fingers tangling in his hair as they kissed under the Parisian sky, the city lights twinkling around them like stars. They stood there for what felt like hours, their bodies pressed together, their kisses growing deeper, more passionate with each passing moment. As the night drew to a close, so too did their time together. Standing by the Seine once more, Amara knew she would have to leave soon. But the thought of saying goodbye felt unbearable. Luc pressed his forehead against hers, his hands tightening around her waist. "I don't want this to end," she whispered. Luc kissed her softly. "Neither do I." Their final kiss was slow, filled with all the emotions they couldn't put into words. When they finally pulled apart, Amara saw the sadness in Luc's eyes, a reflection of her own. "Maybe one day," he murmured, his voice filled with hope, "we'll find our way back to each other." With one last kiss, they let go, the night stretching,